Ladies and gentlemen, I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order, our recess meeting for Wednesday, March 16th, 2022, here at 3 p.m. I'd like to welcome everybody for coming on fairly short notice. This is an item that we needed to attend to quickly. Lance is filling in for Kay Drome, Madam Clerk, today. So Lance Riddle, thank you so much for getting us up and going today. Lance, for your information, all 5 commissioners here are in attendance. Our finance director is in attendance, our county attorney, and our county manager. So everyone is present and accounted for. I would remind everyone to please silence their electronic devices. And if you do speak, please activate your microphone before doing so, or if you come to the lectern, please do so at the lectern. Gentlemen, the first item of business under number 2 is approval of the agenda. Gentlemen, you've had a quick opportunity to look at the agenda and the item for decision. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Abley. All those in favor of Commissioner Abley's motion signify with the uplifted hand. Lance, that is 5-0. Moving on to item number 3, items for decision, selection of great grant application partner. And this will be presented by Margaret Pierce, our Deputy County Manager and Finance Director. It's a runway.
Thank you for your patience with this item. We were meeting with vendors on this process, and the last one we met with was at 2 o'clock today. So we appreciate your patience. This is for GREAT grants, which are growing rural economics with access to technology. These are grants through the North Carolina Department of Information Technology, and they are responsible for evaluating the grant applications under a competitive scoring process and awarding the funds. These funds are to be used to bring internet services to households and businesses with no services. And these applications are due April 4th, and that's what created the timeliness of the issues. So 2 internet service providers reached out to the county for support and for ARP funds as a match to these grants. The applicants were Lumens, which CenturyLink, that's one company, and then Spectrum. And so each grant applicant can request up to $4 million in state funds. Each county can receive up to $8 million in GREAT grant awards. So the internet service providers are the applicants, not the county. The applications do not require county ARP funds. However, it does increase the amount of points available to them. Any number of internet service providers could apply. The county is not required to choose an application to support. You can choose to support one or both, but you have to understand that both are requesting county ARP funds. So if you support both, you're potentially supporting both matches. Lumen CenturyLink is requesting, they had 3 different options. Some of the information is very proprietary, so we weren't able to give you the specifics. But under their 3 levels, there's $500,000 requested, $1 million, or $1.5 million. The different funding equates to the number of potential households they could serve. Under the Spectrum application, they are requesting $1 million. Theirs would serve a set number, potentially, of households. They only provided one option under their plan. The request is for the board's support and commitment of ARP funds of either one of the applications or both. But if the grants are awarded, we would amend the grant ordinance for ARP funds to identify this funding source. Right now, you don't have any set aside within your ordinance for broadband because at the time, this wasn't out there. So I want to show you the map that you've got. Caleb, if you'll put that map up, please. And you've got a small copy of it in front of you. So what this map is the pinkish orangey area is where the FCC says there is not really service. It's either less than 25 megabytes per second, or there's literally no service in the orange. The gray areas are called RDOF. That was a separate award. It was a bidding process that internet service providers did, I believe, a year ago, and that has been awarded to Spectrum in our county, those dark gray areas. So you can see the dark grays up here, looks a little different, and then down here with a couple of tiny pockets in here. RDOF cannot have Great Grant in it, too. They're two different things, and you cannot use Great Grant funds within those dark gray areas. They're already going to provide work on getting services into those areas. So the dark gray has already been taken care of. Spectrum won that award, and they will be doing, I believe, approximately $6 million worth of services in those dark gray areas. They have 6 years to complete that. The orangey sort of areas is where the FCC says great grants should be used. So you've got pockets down here to the east, a little bit along the Caldwell County border, and a significant section up toward Cold Springs, Jonas Ridge, and then you got Longtown here by the lake, and then a little bit here northwest of Glen Alpine. So both are looking at some of these areas. We were unable between 2 o'clock and now to get an answer as to whether exactly where they're applying for is proprietary. The cost of what they're doing at this point until they do their application formally is proprietary, so we can't give you total dollars of the project because that would tell the competitors before they apply the other people's business model of how they're doing it. Yeah. Apologies. What we can tell you is both applicants are in the appropriate areas. They are in the dark grays, or dark orange, excuse me. The yellowish area is where census blocks have identified that at least one household within those yellow areas has less than 25 megabytes per second service. It could be one household in that entire area. It could be every household in that entire area. The lightest colored areas theoretically already have service. This map came from North Carolina Department of Information Technologies. What questions do you have at this point?
Gentlemen, Margaret, I guess there are probably going to be quite a few questions, so
Yeah,
I'll open the floor.
that's okay. I tried to lay some of it out, but it was...
The 4 questions, go over again. You said the dark area was already provided IT suffers.
The dark gray is called RDOF, R-D-O-F, Rural, Brian? Okay. It's a different distinction that says it's already been bid out. Spectrum won those areas, and they have 6 years to build in those.
Okay, and then we're talking obviously just for Burke County, right?
Yes, sir.
This entire thing is for Burke County. All right. You've got orange and yellow. You said the light yellow was in the
Like
map.
this shade of yellow,
Yes.
that is census blocks that are reporting less than 25 megabytes per second. On the bottom here is the legend that I'm reading from.
Okay.
That is where it might be one house in that area, it might be all the houses in that area don't have service.
So it's not complete, but it's,
Based on where they are, I would have to make a fairly,
but maybe it'd be
reasonable
the best
assumption.
question is what area is not? The white?
the white should already have service.
The white only there.
The lightest color should already be taken care of.
So we have 1, 2. around 4 million, is that correct?
4 million.
No, you got 5 with Spectrum. We have 8 million and you have obviously listed about 5 million.
Both
Requested.
applicants would go for $4 million. Both Lumen, CenturyLink, and Spectrum's applications will be for the maximum amount with the state. However, with Lumen's, their first option, the 500,000 from us would not be for 4 million, it's for 2.7 million. But with the state, they're also both putting money in, Spectrum and Lumen's, but it will depend on what level of award they get, how much they put in. Our amount would be set based on the application. As long as they got $4 million, we'd be $1 million.
Okay, and just reading your presentation here, each grant applicant can request up to 4 million in state. Each county can receive up to 8 million. So I am assuming by requesting the lower 4 to 5 million, that we are anticipating that will complete what we need for the county, is that correct?
I would not anticipate this will cover the entire county. It will take, the two applicants will take up, if they're both awarded, they would receive all the funds eligible. Every county in North Carolina has a maximum of $8 million from the state. It's a little confusing.
They would ask for the entire $8 million?
Yes, sir.
2-4.
Each applicant is going to ask for $4 million.
Do we have we just approved several months ago, maybe it's been 7 or 8 now, I don't know. But we approved a guy to do, and I don't remember the firm. What is he doing? Where is he on this picture? Is he part of the gray that you're talking about?
I think what you're thinking of is when the RDOF went, Spectrum asked for support from the county. We didn't put any dollars in, but they wanted to know that we were receptive to them providing service in those areas if they won the bid.
Okay. If I'm one of these candidates who's going to receive $4 million, what is the process of that service?
They would have 2 years to build out the areas that they're requesting. When they turn in their application, they'll specify the exact areas they're going to try to serve. And they have to, it's significant, it's 7 pages of scoring, different points. One of them would be, how much are you saying it will cost you per household? They call it a passing, to pass in front. How much will it cost you to pass in front of the house? How much that is affects their scoring. How many houses along that way don't meet this criteria? Lowers their scoring, which is bad. So they are definitely trying to stay in concentrated areas that have the services. There are programs under different ARP funds, nothing to do with us, that they're required to provide some lower rates also to low-income houses. So
Has Lyons already, say I'm candidate 1 and Scott's candidate 2 of these 2 businesses or entities, has the line already been drawn? Which one's going to get which part of the county?
no, sir, that would be for the state to determine under their application. So, for example, if they're both in their application looking at this orange, the state's the one that picks, not us.
So even 8 million, when they get through spending, everybody in Burke County won't be covered? Is that what you're saying?
That is potentially correct, yes, sir.
Ooh. Is this primarily tower? Or
No.
is this cable?
Cable,
Cable.
fiber.
Well, I had in mind it's tower. There's a new
Right.
tower just east of the Ockard exit that's been built in the last 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month.
I think that's part of what makes it so expensive, is we're talking hard wiring to these people because they're already, the cell stuff really doesn't work well, say up at the lake or Jonas Ridge. More cellular service wouldn't be of benefit, therefore they're gonna be running fiber.
Can't get line of sight, too many hills and valleys and trees and.
That's right.
Okay.
So, the vendor today, and I did not have a chance to verify this number, said there's just under 1,800 homes in Burke County that meet this criteria of being unserved. There's also a significant portion that come into being underserved. You might have internet by cell signal or maybe even by a wire, but the wire's so old and it's not got the bandwidth you need to stream your schoolwork, get everything you need. So they hope there's some of those along the way that they'll be able to actually help as well. But the goal of this money is those ones who have no service.
Okay. You answered the other question I had, how much duplication? There can't be any duplication if it's house to house, so.
The duplication could come into play if they, again, both turn in the same area. The state's the one that should pick. They know best about the data. We don't have to choose. That's not on us. If we want to choose one applicant today so that we know we're only committing $1 million, we can do that. You have every right to just pick one, or you can pick both applicants, but then you're committing $2 million.
Has the state given any figures, the estimated cost per house to do this?
It varies based on the density and where the line ends now. It can be as low as $2,300, and these are vendor estimates, not state, going up to almost $6,500.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I believe that's got my last question.
Questions, comments?
Margaret, did they give you any indication as to how many consumers on these 4 possible projects that they would actually have the potential to touch?
Yes, sir. Hold that thought.
Good question, Oswald.
It would vary from as few as 1,200 to as many as 2,600 if you chose the $1.5 million county commitment.
It's 1,200, 2,600 for,
Well, the $1.5 million commitment with lumens is more, it's gonna serve more people. So that might go up to as many as 2,600.
But you can't use the 1.5 million if we only have 2 million to give out to both, right?
Sorry, you can give out what you want. You could give out what you want. I said 2 million just using that number.
Okay, as an
Sorry.
example, okay.
Yes.
we could give out to 2.5 million, a
You could
million and a
give
half, and
2.5
also $1 million. And so for clarity's sake, that would bring, if they both got $4 million and we got 8, so we could be somehow anchoring 2.5 million, anchoring an additional 16 million in funds possibly, or does it not work that way?
No, sir.
Just for clarity. So how does that exactly look?
It's gonna, the 8 million from the state, then the state does a calculation based on the scoring that says how much, they take the total project cost, the application, they decide how much of that $8 million, or $4 million per application, they're willing to score it to get. Then based on that scoring is how we know ours. But they're saying that based on the amount that the vendors are, the project overall cost, they don't see, if they're awarded, that ours would go down no matter what the state percentage is. They all should qualify, they feel like, based on the scoring, they think they're gonna qualify for 4 million each.
And ours is the unknown. It could be 3 million, it could be 8 million, probably not 8, but
The county ARP dollars would be no more than 2.5 if you did both.
yeah, okay.
There is overlap in their applications of service area. So I don't know that both would get awarded, or if they did, they would not get awarded potentially at full level, so that you can't give the same area to both of them.
You mentioned 1,800 in your comments a minute ago. Tell me again what that number represented.
That was what one of the vendors stated was the unserved per the North Carolina Department of Information Technology.
So if they're
I did
saying,
not have a chance to confirm that, but
so if
no
they're
reason.
saying there's 1,800 unserved, how are they arriving at their 2,600?
Well, unfortunate, Mr. Britton, with one of the meetings at 9:30 this morning, the other finalized at 2, I wasn't able to verify some of the information they gave me. But you're right, the math didn't work for me.
Did they disclose, either of the companies, how much money they intend to put in this?
Yes. And again, I believe it will vary because a lot of the costs are guesstimated, obviously. And my suspicion is that's where the savings would be identified. It also varied because the numbers of the eligible premises has not been 100% set by the state. So that 1,800 estimate that the state's given, they're not finished deciding how many it really is. And I think that's part of why the numbers that they're potentially looking to serve could change. So the state, when they came up, I believe the 1,800 is the orange, not the dark yellow. So if you, say you wanted to bring a line from Hickory and come down into this orange area, well, you're gonna go through some yellows. So you could pick up a significant amount of houses in those census tracts possibly, depending on population density. We know there's some development, pretty good development down through here. You've got a lot from Morganton, Valdez, right along the corridor, obviously, that's good. You've got a good bit along the Caldwell County line that's pretty good, other than 2 pockets. That's, I think, where they're coming up with a variety in numbers.
I guess one of my biggest concerns on the front end of this is, if we give up $2.5 million of our ARP money, and at the end of the day, they run the lines out, maybe they pick up some extra customers in areas where they already have some, and at the end of the day, they only pick up, 300 or 400 customers. How many of our citizens, what do we give up? How many other things can we do with $2.5 million that might impact maybe 10,000 of our citizens versus an unknown here that this money, could evaporate, and what did we get? That's, what did our citizens get? Just a concern.
Tell me one more time what the 1,800 number was.
The unserved households.
Okay, let's just stop right there. Unserved households. And that come from the DIT report saying there was 1,800 unserved households. Broadband is defined as cable, fiber optic, DSL, cellular data plans, smartphones, or plans for the smartphones, other mobile devices, satellites, or fixed wireless. I don't believe that 1,800 number one iota. 25% of this county does not have service. And that was verified through the state last year and the year before, I think it was, when they come in here. And there's pockets in the white where 2 or 3 neighbors have cable, and the next 2 or 3 neighbors do not. And I'm like, Jeff, you're spending $2.5 million where maybe Wayne and Maynard have the cable. For example, out on Balch Road out there, there's 41 houses that we've been trying to work with over the last year, 41 houses. The gentleman can walk to his mailbox, look 500 yards this way, and there's Charter cable. He can look 700 yards this way, and there's Charter cable. The 41 houses and him, behind him, have no cable. So
We discussed that neighborhood and verified it is not considered unserved. And the
It's
way that,
not?
no, sir, but the way, per the NCDIT reports, it is not considered unserved. However, there is an affidavit process that could be gone through to get it certified as unserved. I have, again,
yeah,
don't know exactly what that would take to affidavit them. Then one of the providers could do them. Otherwise, they'd have to be done just by the provider. But if a provider was receiving funds here, perhaps it frees up dollars, so they would do that, was what we understood today.
I understand everything that they have told you, kind of puts us in a precarious situation to try to make a decision whether we want CenturyLink and I need to learn to say Spectrum, I guess, from now on instead of Charter. But the two, then the state decides which service goes to what part of the county. Maybe some people already have some Spectrum services as far as TV and things like that, and telephone where they can bundle, and they give that service to CenturyLink. There could be some, because bundling, which I did, saves a lot of money because Spectrum was able to get there with the internet, the broadband service, along with the telephone service, along with the TV service, so you're able to bundle. But it scares me to think that Wayne's sitting over there and has that, and then CenturyLink comes in and says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Wayne, we can't bundle your house over there because you got this other service." So there's just a lot of questions I know that cannot be answered. But again, I'm just kind of curious as to why, and they're asking, Great Grant's going to give them a lot of money, obviously. So was there any indication of why they wanted the ARP money besides the grant money that they're getting?
No, County Manager and I spoke about the fact that that seems so unusual. They prefer us not to put our own dollars in. They want us to use ARP and not our own funds. They will not get the extra points if we used county dollars at the same level.
And points are determining which one of these two gets the service area, is that correct?
Correct.
So they're in competition, they're both
It's competitive.
said we want to compete with each other to see if we can get the areas. But I think in the end, no matter which way we go and how much we spend, we're going to still have pockets in the white that will be no service. Am I correct in saying
Yes.
that?
And it says in here, in this scoring, this was 57 pages, but Brian printed off the meat for me, and if I seem slightly distracted, Scott Cook has been the expert on this, and he is at conference, and when we realized we needed to do this today, I learned a lot. So it says in here about a tiebreaker. Let me find that. Brian, you know where that was? Here it is. Okay, applicant receiving the highest score shall receive priority status for the awarding of grants. As a means of breaking a tie for applications receiving the same score, the Broadband Infrastructure Office shall give priority to the application proposing to serve the highest number of new households at the lowest cost per household.
And DIT's doing the scoring, right?
Yes. They have a separate division, Broadband Infrastructure Office, that's taking the applications and doing everything. We won't really see the applications. They will ask us for a letter of support, but we won't, that's it.
Is there any assurance that anybody will ever receive service? Or is there any assurance that, or is there any requirements that their rates would be such that there'll be any special deals for these folks in these areas? Or is this going to be at the standard offer of service?
Not under Great Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, but under CAB, the one that's coming in the fall. It's a different kind of infrastructure grant that will be available starting in August. They haven't laid out the entire parameters, but they've said if you do that one, there will be a requirement. Now, that will be a county application that we would have to partner with others and do RFPs and things. That one will be us, more choosing than, no, excuse me, the state will still choose because we're partnering with the state, but we have to do the application on that one.
So there's still the risk that 8, 10, 12, whatever million number of dollars is spent, the consumer says, I can afford this anyway, and nobody takes service.
Yes, they will control their pricing. Each of these internet service providers will control their pricing. Obviously, the goal is to get it into the households, but there's nothing in here that we found that says they have to charge certain prices, they have to offer it, they have to get it there. Yeah, you have to be able to pay for it. The hope is, and there are programs out there right now that are doing low-income houses. They may not be there forever. Yes, sir. Sorry.
I don't know what I want to ask. I was just thinking about, you're talking about the pricing, so the price that Jeff and I are paying now for our service, these other folks could maybe even get it cheaper, maybe?
I would think
Okay.
that's possible.
Mr. Chairman. I think the little surprise that I was thinking about, that I was hoping that this kind of money, of course, again, I was probably thinking tower service versus cable service, that we would cover our entire Burke County. So I guess the question is, all this money might not serve more than 500 people, correct?
Based on the numbers they shared with us, it should. We weren't able to keep maps of their potential areas. They showed them briefly, but we weren't allowed to keep those. They were proprietary. So, but it looks like it should be more. I can tell you that it looks like it should be well more than 500 people, but no, I can't guarantee you that. And I don't think they'd guarantee you that at this point. They would say, obviously they want to because they want the revenue. And this is a great opportunity for them to create capital with very little money out of their own pockets. I mean, even if they put in $2 million, we put in $1 million and the state puts in $4 million, they've received an incredible asset for a minimal investment. So you would hope they would price it appropriately for at least a couple years. But again, they tend to be, this is our price for our service, no matter where you're at. Unless you're a new customer, then you get cool deals, and existing customers don't. So,
Well, the bad side of that equation is, so we make 500 or 1,000 homes happy, whatever that number is. And how many do we have left that's going to be really unhappy because they didn't get the service? And this kind of goes back in reference to one of Jeff's questions. What would it take to do it if you stayed at towers, even though you'd have to have many of them, and it would cover the entire Burke County? How many tower locations? And I know that take a lot of engineering to answer that question, but is it feasible? Could you do it with 10 towers, and the cost of the tower is $250,000, and you've spent $2.5 million? And you see the difference there. Mm-hmm. But the big difference is you didn't run cable, and you covered the entire county instead of 10% or 20, whatever that figure might come to be. But
this program just wouldn't do towers. It is for wired only.
It is per household
It's
service.
wired, it has to be, can't be towers.
And Johnny, I think, covered that. I had down here, what would be the charge to each participant, or do we have an estimate? So, but that would be some concern, and obviously they should be, is probably a good way to put it, should be a cap that it's no higher than people that's already getting service, or else they can take advantage of the free money and build the service and double the profits because they don't have any cost in building the service. It was provided by somebody else, by the grant.
And the county does have the option to support applications without funding. They will score lower, but that is also an option.
Say that again, they have the option of,
We have the option to support the application with words only, not funding. However, it will not score as well. We don't understand from their scoring matrix nor the webinars that were done what happens with only 2 applicants, even if they score low. We do not understand or we do not understand that they would automatically get awarded. If that makes sense, that
yes, I follow you.
So Margaret, just for clarity's sake, we get a lot of emails and people, Johnny mentioned that pocket over there. We've gotten emails on that, especially Johnny over the years, and we've gotten some other emails from folks in the community that have encouraged us to follow through with this. And, even if we considered this, of course, they're going to email us and say, we're going to be covered. We have no clue. Just for clarity's sake, we got no control,
No,
no
sir.
clue. We
No,
don't
sir.
have a number of folks who are going to be served. We don't control the cost. We don't control anything at this
Correct.
point. Basically, we're just blindly going in with faith that they will do the right thing.
correct.
Or, I guess beyond that, the very people that have asked us, to do this may not even be in this area that these folks have chosen. We've got no way of knowing that.
Right, you're correct. In the proposals, they give us little dots on a map about as big as I gave you to try to find those areas. I can say that, we tried to confirm the 2 areas that I know we've gotten requests on, whether they would be. The one, I know the plantation loop, they said we'd have to do, or they would have to do special I'm not even sure if it's us or the residents that are gonna have to do these affidavits yet. But that area could be done if the affidavits come through and the state agrees to do that, or they do it on their own pocket while they're there, if they're in that area. The other section up off of Fish Hatchery Road that we were emailed about looks to be very, but I'm looking at a map this big and trying to make sure I could be 2 miles down the road. I can't tell from that. There's not a way to search a specific address within their stuff to tell if it's there. So you're correct. We might not be hitting 2 areas of concern that we know we've been talked about.
Mr. Chairman, one other quick statement. I'm sure that, I'm sitting here thinking, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of citizens pose a question about value of spending $4 or $5 million and reaching only 500 households. And the only good part thus far of this program is we're not spending tax dollar money, it's grant money. And assuming if we don't use it, some of the county is going to get to enjoy that fund. Is that correct?
At this time, they've said it's $8 million per county, but if a county didn't take advantage, they have not said what would happen to those that don't take advantage. I mean, it wasn't until today or this week that we had one of these vendors reach out to us. So there is also the potential for someone else to put their hat in the ring between now and April 4th that we're not even aware of. They're not on our radar.
What is the deadline for us to make up our
If you ask these vendors, it's yesterday. They've been, the first one we spoke to about a week ago has been pushing, and the other one said, love to know now, and we said, we got to talk. So April 4th is when their deadline to submit the application is. So I would feel that that's a Monday.
But there's no match in Burke County tax dollars to do this program.
No, it's your American Rescue Plan dollars they're asking for.
But those same dollars could supplant something else that we might have to pay for with tax dollars. I guess is kind of where I'm leaning. How many citizens can we provide water to for $2.5 million and know, where it is? That's kind of, I'm torn between, the value, again, by giving these funds to folks that are outside of our control, we have no way to know what's going to happen.
So I can add some more confusion to that for you. There was legislation passed first of this week, end of last week, that's finalizing through the chain. So we have almost no information. It's a whole different pot of infrastructure money for broadband. Brian, the name of it, did you catch the name?
State legislation,
I think it's federal.
federal.
So we had a third vendor that was interested in applying that I spoke to at 2:10 today, and he said, never mind on this. He feels like the other pot's going to give him more flexibility and a much higher cap. But we don't have the details on it yet, but he decided he did not want to be part of your consideration today for the GREAT grant. That company did not, because they have evaluated and feel that they have a better option to do more. But I have no information on that, other than what he said on the phone at 10 after 2.
I agree totally with what Jeff said. There's two winners here. That's CenturyLink and Spectrum. They're getting $4 million, and they want to take the icing that we have and just spread it a little thicker, and we don't know what we're getting when we put the icing on top of their cake. We don't know who gets served in the county. Don't have a clue who gets served in the county. And it's just like, come on, guys, trust us,
For the
Trust
government?
us, we'll take care of these people out here in the county, but with your $2.5 million, and we'll spread this around wherever we feel like spreading it around. We've worked with these people, and yes, I've been aggravated with Charter talking to the government agent about and the last time we talked was out on the Piedmont Road. He said, well, if the county wants to pony up some money, we can get it there. This is $1 trillion company, They could get there if they wanted to get it there, and we all know that, but now they're taking advantage, and I'm not knocking the fact that the state come up with a program. They got a great grant program. I wasn't real hip on it when it came out. All it's doing is giving away a lot of money. And money had to come from somewhere, it come from somebody into that big old pot to give away $4 million each, and then they, like I said, like Jeff says, they want a little icing on there. Well, that icing, we may be able to use it somewhere else for a better cause. I just don't know. It's kind of, if there's something out there that we could use it for, it would be better served. I mean, it's still, with those figures I gave you, the 25%, we still have 18% of this county that doesn't even have any kind of computing devices to even use broadband. So, I don't know how much $4 million, how much cable you can lay down for that. According to them, it's like 3-4 feet, because they say it's pretty expensive to lay that stuff. Every time you talk to them, anyway, that's what they say. So, gentlemen, that's just kind of, I'm scared about, kind of giving them this extra money. I mean, they're gonna apply for the grants and probably get them, and without any problems. But for us to use ARP money on top of that, I don't know.
Yes.
Well,
I don't want,
this is one, excuse me, go ahead.
I just don't want citizens to say, you guys up there voted and we still didn't get any service, you know?
That could happen.
And that could happen.
Their estimates in mileage, if that means anything, their estimates in mileage go from 45 under one option to 156 is the highest amount of mileage I show in cable laid.
And what does that mean to us? I mean, we don't understand what this mileage means. I mean, if we had a better picture of how their miles go, I might be able to take a look at Jeff. Does that mean anything to you from your business side of it? The answer to that would be no.
It's so vague. I mean,
Yeah, it is vague.
I agree. That's why I said for what it's, I mean, I can tell you what it says.
Yeah, it's a selling program. They're trying to convince us that they need this ARP money that we have.
You know, if I did the math right, $8 million, by 140 or 50 miles, that's $57,000 a mile. I mean, for a piece of cable. I don't know.
Well, if you're running through good soft ground, you know that it's cheaper to do that than to run through rocks, and that's where the differences of the cost of the mileage, but there should be a way to protect the county a little bit on the value side of that, and that value, you know, we should get maybe a scale, I don't know if that'd work, or a low and a high, a table, but we ought to be able to get some kind of warranty or suggested number of households that it serves where they want to serve. I understand the government's need to look like it's being aggressive and positive, and that the future is there'll be no schoolhouses, and you'll be at school at your home with your computer. And to get to that next stage, you got to have what they're recommending today. And even if you look at Burke County and they're going to get 15% of the people that doesn't have this kind of service, still leaves 85% to get to the point that every household has the capability of doing communications, remote learning, and all the other things that people can do. Well, if y'all remember several years ago, 5-6 years ago, that at one of the conferences of the county commissioners, and they predicted that 45% of what we do as humans would eventually be done by robots. And they clean your house and do all that stuff while you're awake at work. But all of a sudden, you don't have to go to work. So, but it's hard not to accept the $8 million. And I think all of us having a little bit of trouble with the value that we get for that $8 million. So, you know, and
Without seeing the actual applications, it is hard to evaluate it. I think they would be tied to requirements if they were awarded the money. But again, it's gonna be an agreement with the state, and the state's the one that's gonna need to hold them accountable. If they say, we're doing 1,000 homes, they're gonna have to hold them accountable to those 1,000 homes. We just won't know where they are until they make that agreement with the state.
Would we be prevented from coming to the party after the award is made if we see that it's in areas that we think brings value, could we then offer up our ARP money?
To these providers? You could, I'm sure, go to them and say, that would be my ARP expert, that would be the partnership, right? If we wanted to go to a specific provider afterwards with ARP money and request service in a certain area.
Yes, but the catch with that is if you go, what the state has said is, or the state government has said, that if you decide to do it, they call it going on your own through ARP and doing our own projects, you're then ineligible for grant, for great grant. So it's kind of, you got to choose one path or the other. If we decide to do it,
After they, we say, yeah, we support this, their great grant, go for it. They get their $8 million without our agreement to match or provide this part. So once that happens, would there be anything that would prevent us from saying, okay, we like your project, and we're willing to give you, whatever amount of ARP money to go along with this. It's not tied, to them getting the grant, but it.
just after the fact money.
Do we have to do this RFP process?
Well, and that's something what they've said a lot with of these things is that if they've kind of done one of the other scenario, that if we decide to do our own broadband stuff under ARP, separate from this great grant, then we're not eligible for great grant. They haven't touched much on if you do it the other way. If they do get the great grant, and then we come in later and say, listen, we want to support this project. I'm assuming a lot would have to do with tied to the infrastructure compliance and things we have to do through the 2200 CFR to make sure we're following the bidding process and the fair process for vendors. So I don't know if it would disqualify us in that way, but they have said if you do it the other way, you are disqualified from great grants. But they've also spoken to a lot about this, the federal infrastructure law that was fined back in November. That's where a lot of these other funds are supposed to be coming through. So there could be a lot more projects out there coming down the pipeline that haven't come to fruition yet that will open up funds to do more projects with greater latitude. I think that's what that one vendor is alluding to. They expect more latitude to come. The great grant is nothing new. It's been around, I think, for 4 or 5 years. And the one thing with the great grant is ISP is not required to partner with the county. So whereas we know of these two that do want our support, there could be 1 or 2 out there that are applying for it directly and not involving the county. And they would also be involved in that competitive process. Now, being that we're such a rural county, I don't know if that would be a case because we don't have a lot of internet service providers around here. But yeah, they don't have to go through us to get that funding either.
Obviously, this is clear as mud.
I started saying, now that we've thoroughly confused you.
Yeah, this is, so we could, once again, without monetary support them going to the state and applying for these grants. What would we be out if we did that? Nothing, correct?
Nothing.
And so,
Their application would lose some points, but
but is there I understand the application, but if they were to happen to get some funding, there would still be an agreement that they would, with the state, that they're gonna have to service blah, 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 that they agreed to. So we could possibly, not guarantee, but possibly pick up some broadband here without having to commit any funds. May not be likely, but it's possible,
yes,
just by us saying yes. I mean,
correct.
and that way we may get some type of infrastructure for zero as an option. And I know you mentioned that to start with, but I'm just sitting there thinking, because we all seem kind of real hesitant on giving up, and Jeff mentioned this ARP, it may be ARP money, but that's ARP money that's coming out of our pocket that we could be using for something else, so that we can control. And Brian, I know you've been waiting patiently to speak up.
Well, that's what I was kind of going to allude to, is because of the proprietary restrictions, you're not allowed to have a great deal of information to make a clear decision. If you do nothing but write the letter of support, you have given nobody an advantage. They're all on an even keel. And if we're gonna still get 4 million for each, up to 8 million, then you've not done anything to alter how that's gonna be graded. Nobody got any extra points. And you can always wait and see how this goes, and if there's another program that comes up that picks up these other places, you may be able to make a better decision. And again, that money, once it's gone, so, this may be the more careful path to take and being good stewards of the monies that are available to us.
So we're thinking alike on that. Gentlemen, what's your idea on just a letter of support that doesn't cost us anything but could benefit us?
Well, I understand incentives. There's no way I'd want to agree to $1 million or $1,500, $1.5 million. But ARP, if we took a $500,000 apiece, that's a total of $1 million instead of a total of, what was that, 3-4 million? But it would be an incentive that would help we wouldn't want to do nothing, which means they wouldn't do nothing and you don't even give a chance, but, they obviously are resourceful and see an opportunity to get more money, and nothing wrong with asking to make their application look better, and that's the whole point of it.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to say one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Great grants are not going away. They've been here, just as we found out, for 4 or 5 years. They've had the opportunity to apply for those grants for 4 or 5 years. Even if we don't support the ARP funding, these two entities have the opportunity to go back next year and ask for more great grant money to finish doing the county. Now, somebody out there is going to have to wait a year, 12 months, but look how long they've already been waiting. If we could get some kind of guarantee, if we get 2 companies in here like Spectrum and like CenturyLink starting work, maybe they will continue to ask for great grant money next year, because the state has been funding great grant monies, so that we can pick up more people, And we still got these people, like I say, they're on satellites, they're on DSL, some of them are on their phone. They, hopefully, eventually, they can get off of that and come, maybe, if these are the only 2 companies that are kind of interested in Burke County, I guess I would support and be willing to make the motion to go ahead and support it with no ARP, no county ARP money funds to support it. I support them going on doing what they're doing right now, because it appears that they want to come in and do something because they're getting the free money, from the state to do it. And then and then there's the federal program. If the federal program goes through this year, and then we come back with the great grant funding next year, some people would just have to wait a little bit longer, but they've been waiting a good while right now, so maybe they'd be not too upset to wait just a little bit longer if they know that we actually have 2 companies and are actually putting it in. That's my last comments.
Johnny, what about all the people that have, like you, that are sort of bundle a package? That's what we do. What would be our incentive to change?
I don't see an incentive to change,
I mean, I just wonder how many people in the county have it like we do, which we don't know.
Which we don't know.
Would they be willing? Are they willing to change? Or I'm happy with what I get.
Okay, I got what you're saying, but why would we want to change?
Yeah.
There would be no reason to change, because we're still just talking about people who don't have anything. But the only question I had about it is maybe some people would prefer Spectrum over CenturyLink, but maybe CenturyLink would offer some kind of bundle package with the telephone and the internet service,
Well, I think eventually they'll have to be competitive. They'll have to do that, but right at the moment they probably don't. But there's got to be a lot of people out there that have service like we have. I'm happy. I mean, we get good service.
Mr. Chairman, I'm like John, one more comment. I think that if we participate with ARP money, and that's what I was thinking of when I said that, more or less, was instead of making it part of the package, it's an incentive for performance. And that performance would have to be set with this board, and it could be anything from the speed they do it and how efficient they are to how many, what is the minimum level of homes they gotta reach in order to receive the additional whatever.
I'm ready to make a motion.
I was going to ask you, Vice Chair Carswell, are you willing to make the motion?
Yes, sir. I make a motion to support the applications with no county ARP funding and authorize the county manager to issue a letter of support and execute other required grant documents.
Thank you, Commissioner Carswell. Everyone's heard Commissioner Carswell's motion, so all those in favor signify with the uplifted hand. Lance, that'll be 5-0. Margaret, thank you so much.
Thank you for your patience. I know it's a confusing subject. We've all been breathing it for a little while.
I'm going to have to look at those stocks, by the way, after hearing that information.
No, don't do it.
So gentlemen, at this point, I will accept a motion to adjourn. All those in favor? Motion carried 5-0, Lance. Thank you. And thanks for meeting on short notice, gentlemen.